go. Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Big Mike with Swish for Real. Here we go. I got my boy Boogie Bob in the building, Wild Dog, and our special guest Ken, man. Big Ken on fire, man. How you been, man? How's things going for you, man? And thanks for hopping on, by the way.
No problem, man. Everything's been going good, man. No complaints. This NBA season is in full swing, playoff mode. So you know we ready for it.
Man, thanks. We have a lot to talk about today, so I can't wait to hear what you got to say about all the things we got topics for. Boogie Bob, man, how you living, man? How things going on your end of the world?
Good, good. It's that time of year when you got to mow the grass every week, and with this rain, it's gonna be pretty tall by the time that sunshine comes out. But you know, we were talking
Well,
about a pool a few minutes ago, and my grandmother said, "Well, we were so poor growing up. We called it a poo, not the pool. We couldn't afford the O and the L."
that I don't even know what to say about that one, bro. That's kind of sad.
Hey,
Kind of remind me when I was growing up. Wild dog. How are you doing, my guy? How things going on your end of the planet?
hey, Big Mike. Hey, just happy and blessed to be here. I got my teenager this weekend, so I'm happy to be in dad mode. And we grew up so poor. Wasn't no thing. Such thing as a pool. It's a watering hole. We're skinny dipping. Great skinny dipping, brother.
I don't know about the
Slip
skinny
and
dipping
slide.
part. Skinny dipping. I ain't never did that one, bro. I
You
mean,
got to try it with the wifey on a little trip.
oh yeah. Shit, I don't know. But anyway, guys, our podcast today is going to be pretty unique in the fact that we're talking about a coach. A couple of coaches we're going to be talking about. Well, maybe just this one in particular, Pat Riley, man. Since the Miami Heat's been put out of the playoffs and they're sitting home and doing a little fishing right now, Pat Riley has a lot to kind of consider and think about in regards to his position with the Miami Heat. We're going to start with you, Big Ken. Do you think Pat Riley will maintain his position with the Miami Heat, or is it time for him to go ahead and pack it up and let somebody else take the ranks as far as what he's doing?
Nah, man. I don't see Pat stepping down, man. Pat seems like the type of guy that he would literally have to leave this earth in order to leave that position. Put it
Yeah.
that way. So unless something dramatic happens and something big happens or something like that to take him away from it, I don't see him leaving that position anytime soon.
And the way they got beat that last game, oh my God. I mean, that was a beat down. I mean, if you were Pat Riley, what were your thoughts would
Shit,
be in
years.
regards to that type of game, and especially in the playoffs?
I mean, it happens. I know Pat's been around the game for many decades, and as a player, and as a coach, and now as what I'm saying in the executive ranks. So I mean, he's seen it all. It happens, man, and I think that that team is missing something. What is missing? I haven't quite put my finger on it yet, but it's missing something. They have some pieces and they have the things in place to be successful, but I would have to really sit down and really analyze that team again to tell you what they're really missing. But I don't think it's Pat's fault.
Yeah. What about the position? Because if you, in my opinion, they're missing a center. Because I think they got Bam in the wrong position. He's a power forward naturally. They got
Yeah.
to find a center. I think that would be the case of as far as them changing or improving. You consider that position maybe something that's kind of holding them back?
Yeah, it could be because the weird thing about the NBA is they went for a few years there where you really didn't have to have a big, and that's why Draymond was like successful because the way the league was built. But I've noticed over the past 2 to 3 years, you're starting to see the resurgence of big man again. You're
Hmm.
starting to see the resurgence of more post play.
Yeah.
And so now you kind of are going back a la Dallas went and got the bigs last year in those trades, and then it became something that really propelled them. When they went into the playoffs in the second half of the season and into the playoffs and all the way to the finals. So now that may be it. That may be definitely it. They may need a big.
Yeah, and
A
looking
true
at the
big.
team now, yeah, that's what I was thinking. They need a big, and they're gonna need a point guard at this point because they really suffering at that guard position. Only person they really got that can get buckets right now, besides Jimmy Buckets going to Golden State, is Tyler Hero, and his performance has been really surprising in my opinion. But besides the center position, yeah, I'm thinking guard will be the next probably position they need to fill. Wild Dog, your thoughts on Pat Riley probably stepping away from the game and giving it a retirement speech?
I got kind of a 2 points to this, so I'm gonna, of course, agree with Big Ken, and that Pat Riley is not someone that is capable of necessarily letting go of things or being able to even read the writing on the wall to know that perhaps not necessarily he's the problem, but he could alleviate some of the stress and provide opportunities of a refresh for the organization. So because like even when he was head coach starting back in 1995, I really put him back. I really put Pat Riley continuous from 95 through 2008, because even when he wasn't technically head coach, we all knew and we saw how he operated. He was still head coach, because how quickly he pulled the trigger. Was it in 2005? Ching, right? To take the reins back over and then lead them on into the finals and winning.
2006 where they beat Dallas, and that's where I was having my issues with Pat Riley.
So at that point, you are the executive. What are you doing coming back in as the head coach? So again, this is not just us talking. This is because he's giving a clear example of someone who's hadn't ever been able to let go, or they let go and realize, no, I hadn't quite let go, or the organization needs me specifically, to exist. And it's like, yeah. So is he going to step down in any kind of way from president of basketball operations? No. Now, on the flip side of this, let me end with this. Could he actually do it? Can he look around? If he looks around, could he exhale and walk away? Now, Andy Edinburgh is the senior vice president, and he's been the general manager since 2013. So, with Riley around, he's still active, but Andy's been general manager since 2013. Man, that's if anybody's ready, Andy's ready. So, so Godfather, if you wanted to, it's okay. You can let it go. Andy's ready.
And at the age of 80, born in 1945, I don't see at that point he has cognitive abilities to continue to do what he's doing. But I would definitely consider, living a little bit free time in my 80s. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be at the office all the time. But there's a lot of people who want to continue to go at that age to make them, to keep that mobility and interest in the things that you love. And I hate to say that, he's too old for what he's doing, because he's really not. I just think that it's time for him to go ahead and do something different when it comes to being a president GM of the Miami Heat in the NBA atmosphere. But he knows the game, though. So how can you take that away is the question.
But like Big Ken alluded to, this is the kind of, legend that dies in office. That is his choice, and very well for the, the overall big picture. This is someone that, well, it is what it is, and let the man die in office. We're talking about a 9-time NBA champion, whether it's as a player, assistant coach, head coach, and an executive. We're talking about a 3-time coach of the year and a 1-time executive of the year. So if anybody has a right to be like, I'm going to die in office, it's the Godfather.
Yeah. Gotcha. Bob, your thoughts, man. Do you think Pat Riley at the age of 80 should kind of call it quits, or, You think he'll step down at any moment in time in the upcoming season?
He won't this year, but he should. Uh, Pat Riley was with Kentucky when they infamously lost to University of Texas El Paso. Uh, UTEP's only championship when they were the first team ever to start all 5 African Americans
Mm.
in the NCAA. So that's how far back Pat Riley goes. Much like Red Auerbach, he's a figurehead for the league. So it's not just the Miami Heat organization, but the icon of the league. They still need figureheads and people. Nelly's already went off into sunset in Maui, so there's with with very few people with the longevity still in the NBA. The NBA needs that stability. But I read an interesting point. Said that Pat Riley no longer has the allure to attract free agents to Miami. And it wasn't that long ago that he brought Chris Frost and LeBron James to play with Dwayne Wade.
Mm-hmm.
Miami was a destination city for a long time, but Jimmy Butler came, but that was more about than the Miami Heat. And they interviewed him. He said, I don't know. I'm not so sure about the Heat culture when they interviewed Jimmy Buckets.
What?
Yeah, he had a quote. He said, he goes, we work hard, but he goes, he said it was overblown. But, got an 80-year-old president of operations. So the young kids, they struggle to really know who he is. They probably more know about Dwayne Wade and LeBron, who's, 40 and already played 20 some years, 22 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, which brings me to my next point. Flowers and props to Popovich, who had a heart attack this year and has stepped down as head coach. He's going to still be president of operations, and they appointed Mitch Johnson as head coach, which leaves Spoelstra and Steve Kerr as the 2 most senior coaches in the league.
Mm.
So that gives you an idea how long Pat Riley's been around. All those battles, he's held in the same regard as Popovich. But when you talk about organizations and management, those are 2 figureheads, 2 icons in the NBA. And so you got one that's already stepping back. And I think it's probably time for him to give the reins to Spoelstra or maybe the assistant GM and let a new coach come in. Maybe move Spoelstra up kind of like Boston did. They had a succession plan after Red Auerbach, and then Danny Ainge moved in after player.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the time for him, but I don't think he'll do it this year. I think he should go. Go run for president. We got an 80-year-old president, so why not go run for president?
So if he doesn't step down, in your estimation, he probably not do it this year. Is there any changes? And we would just discuss it with Big Ken and Wild Dog. Any changes to the roster he might consider doing? If there's any changes, what would those changes be? That's a question for you, Bob.
Their salary cap position is not. They got Andrew Wiggins in that trade, and I think they got a pick or 2. But Bam's getting paid. Hero signed a big contract, so they're top heavy. That's why they leaned on the G League. But if Miami doesn't do a rebuild, they do a reload.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is who are they going to go after, and do they have the draft assets and other capital to do it? They've got, as Ken said, they got a couple nice pieces, but they don't. Credit to them. They made the finals with Jimmy Butler twice when they really weren't. Gabe Vincent was there and Caleb Martin. They had some other spare pieces there, but
Yeah.
that dries, that well's around dry, and so if Spoelstra takes over, you probably try to continue, but if some new regime, they probably tear it down and rebuild.
Mm, And speaking of rebuild, Wanda, have you had an opportunity to see that last game Giannis had, and he got into like a heated discussion with Halliburton's dad? What are your thoughts on him staying with the Bucks for the upcoming future? Because I don't know, because everybody's speculating. There's been a lot of rumors, though. I mean, he could be you can AI him in anybody's uniform, but the main uniform people have been really thinking is San Antonio. Will he leave due to the injury that this team has faced in the season, especially with Dame going down? What would be, if he does leave, what would be his best destination? And could he leave is the question.
Right, because I'm having a hard time with this because of his established commitment to the organization, to the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, and then me being able to read his rapport with Dame, yeah, they're both seasoned vets, but outside of that, I can't really read or haven't heard much of more anything significant beyond that. You know what I'm saying? So on one hand, I'm like, Dame has gone down. I really don't feel like that affects, the Greek Freak. But on the other hand, the organization's adjustments or lack of movement with Dame's injury could have greatly more impact. So I really kind of see, Giannis going on with his extension. If I'm reading that right. No, he signed through 2026. So I see him, not asking for a trade, and kind of working with the organization to see what they're doing, where they're at. And then from there, it's really more about his relationship and how he's viewing the organization. Because when we thought he would leave, he doubled down and been like, this is home for me. And then his relationship with Dame is not necessarily that cohesive or tight, where it really one hinges on the other. But if for some reason he was to leave, it would be a real particular situation, because think about, his roots and his culture and his mindset. He's not just looking for a bag. He's going to be looking for home. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And if you ask him, it's like, oh, I could play another 7-10 years. Where is he going to spend the next decade of his life if it's not in Milwaukee? So it's a much different, delicate situation. And we talked a great bit about dysfunction, and even strong organizations historically, like the Miami Heat, where they might be having shifts and rebuilds or having to restructure. So it gets real delicate, because he could think he's going to a, historical great, franchise, even like the Spurs even, but they're going through some major changes. Then how would that play out? So I'm not ready to jump now. I'm going to give the Bucks this coming year, see how the role players development, the bench, work and develop, how the organization, responds to this, and then see how the landscape with the NBA organizations kind of how some things pan out. Because with Pop stepping down, it's like, yeah, you're going with the inside guy, but still it's big question marks, too many question marks for the stable organizations that he should be, I'm going to go ahead and say, entitled to make a move to.
And Ken, your thoughts on that? You think, I know he's been missing his cohorts, and there's been a lot of changes in the season for the Milwaukee Bucks. If Giannis was to leave, and hopefully, I know the Milwaukee fan base don't want that to happen, what would he be better suited if he left the organization and played for somebody else?
I mean, I've seen the memes of San Antonio. I've seen some memes of the Lakers. If he leaves Milwaukee, which I highly doubt because of the type of guy he is, like Wild Dog said, he is a very loyal individual. He has had a kind of rough upbringing where they had to move around and shift around a lot. So he's looking for home, like Wild Dog said. And I think he found that home in Milwaukee. I don't see him leaving. So, I mean, even with the injury to Dame, I mean, as Wild Dog said, I didn't see the cohesiveness between the two. I just saw two guys being able to play, two professionals out there on the court. I didn't see, the camaraderie that you see between some stars, like you may have seen between Luka and LeBron at times where they looked like, they're building a rapport. So I don't see him leaving going anywhere, man. But if he does, it would probably be, I don't think a big market, man, because he doesn't strike me as a big market guy. So, Lakers and San Antonio were the two that a lot of people been talking about. I could see him going to San Antonio before I could see him going to LA because he just doesn't strike me as the type of guy who wants that type of glitz and glamour, and be around that type of environment, especially with his family too.
And the fact that he lost Dame in the middle of the season, well, in the playoffs, basically
Yeah.
before the playoffs started, that was a big hit for them. And he did say some very kind words when they won the in-season tournament about how Dame was a great teammate and he made the team better.
Yeah.
Do you think that would still, if Dame gets better, well, we know he will that kind of lure Giannis back into the fold of things as far as Milwaukee goes?
I mean, that very well could, but it just depends on how Dame recovers. We all know Achilles injuries can be very debilitating, but with medicine and the science that they have now, these guys are bouncing back from Achilles injuries, and some of them, like KD, are coming back and they're better than they were before at times. So I mean, it's miraculous, man. Me personally, having torn my Achilles before, I know the rigors of it and I know how long it takes, even with the medicine and the access that they have and the work that he's gonna have to put in. So it's gonna be an uphill battle for Dame. But I think if he is coming back and he can show that he can come back with, the same abilities and game that he had before the injury, that will probably bode well for making Greek stay in
Wow,
Milwaukee.
gotcha. Look at Bob. Your thoughts on the same subject, man. Will the Greek Freak stay in Milwaukee? And if so, what would be the reasons why he would stay? And if he did move around, what team would be best suited for the Greek Freak?
I don't valid points by Ken and Wild Dog. I don't think he stays. I
Oh,
and what he's got one chip, and I think
that's fine.
he is such a competitor. He wants a legacy, and I do buy into what Ken said about big market and small market.
Hmm.
I think he leaves. Clubs were lining up at his last extension, so he will have 10 years in the NBA. He's 30 years old, so the rights follow with him. But you have two leading contenders that Giannis would fit great in that haven't been mentioned. And the first one I put on the list would be Oklahoma City.
Mm.
They got the draft capital. Uh, you
Mm.
put you put Chet Holmgren, Giannis, SGA, Lou Dort, and Jalen Williams. I'm like they're already knock you off. They won 60 some odd games this year. You add a Giannis to that team, and Oklahoma City's got the draft capital and the salary cap room to put him on the team. Uh, and then you got Houston that's young.
Yeah.
Uh, how well would Giannis fit in there with Houston with Sagoon and Jalen Green and uh, the Amon Thompson and some of the young cats there? Uh,
Fred Bland V.
Yeah.
and those two small market teams, I think, would be contenders. Oklahoma City is the type of city that would just they would put their arms around him and he would have the bright lights uh, pressure, and they already have a support staff there. And that's the kind of move I could see Sam Presti making. Uh,
Mm.
the Lakers in Miami are going to get talked about. Uh, that may be one of those they've got two strikes and there's a pass ball right down the middle and it's a swing and a miss. Uh, but uh, I think he moves and a little bit about Dame. Uh, even with today's medicine, very few players come back from Achilles tear.
Mm.
KD is an exception. But you lose too much speed and you lose too much lateral movement. I'll give you an example that Wes Matthews was a heck of a player at Portland, and he came back and he was not anywhere near the same player when he got to Dallas. Yeah, he
Do
was.
do
He
you
was.
think it's more subconscious when you have that type of injury? Because I remember when I used to
Or
injure
mental.
my ankles bad, I think it's more subconsciously that they are really thinking about that injury.
Yeah,
Well,
it's mental.
I didn't. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't. I played some organized ball. Once I graduated college, but I played a lot of pickup ball, and uh, I rolled my ankle several times, and like you can put that out of your mind, but the structure of Dame's game, I mean, he always had that shooting range, but uh, you talk about quickness and lateral movement. He's 34 years old,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
uh, you're already with no injuries at 34. You're going to be starting to slow down some. Uh, I can see Milwaukee uh, sending Dame to Phoenix to pair up with KD. They're about almost same age, uh, and get those picks from Phoenix and maybe get a player back, and then move Giannis for a buttload of picks to like Oklahoma City or Houston. But Dame will always be able to shoot. It's kind of like the sudden end of Brandon Roy. There's a different injury, but Brandon Roy's injury basically
Hmm.
knocked him out. Uh, if Dane comes back and plays, he my prediction is he will still be better than half the league, but he won't be the Dame Lillard that we know. Uh, but I think Giannis moves on. I think Giannis wants another chip. He wants to be if a European player is going to be the face of the franchise between him, Jokic and Luka, I think he wants his name in the hat. When they talk about MVP for the last 3 or 4 years, Giannis really hasn't been mentioned much.
Yeah.
Uh, and if you remember when they won that chip, he had that comeback block late in the game that helped them win.
Hmm.
So Chris Middleton has been injured. They got DeAndre Hunter this year, defensive player from Atlanta. This there's there's just a lot of bad luck at Milwaukee, and he can carry a team, but that's a big load. And in the East, between Cleveland, Boston, and New York, that Philly's probably coming in the same position. Embiid come back or not. So I
Mm.
could see, man, if he goes to the Thunder, whew, that
Yeah.
would be a smoking team.
Now facts, and they got those two centers already with Chet and what's his name, Halliburton or
Hartenstein.
Hardenstein, yeah. And Giannis, I mean, in 2020, he won the MVP for the league and also the defensive MVP, which is a feat in itself.
Yes.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
he missed. I mean, he loved Dame, but he missed Drew Holiday's defense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and Giannis could basically play point guard if he wanted, but he can guard all five positions. So
Yeah.
I,
Facts.
I mean, I grew up in Oklahoma City. I might have to get my Thunder gear out.
The only
Nah.
thing the only thing I'll say about him going to OKC or Houston though, they have a lot of young players that they have in the stash, and they're gonna have to move those guys. And I don't know if those GMs really want to move any of those young fellas, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm gonna get him in a trade, and I'm trading with both of those teams, some of those players like a Chet or somebody like that, or like a Thompson from Houston, if I'm trading away my guy, I'm gonna want one of those guys.
Yep.
So if you trade with him, they're gonna want more than picks. They're gonna want some of that talent too. So that's gonna shake up those rosters a bit. Um, so that's the only thing I'm leery of with those type of trades with those teams and them having such a young roster. Is shifting those young guys around before they even really get a chance to kind of
I'm
build some
not.
momentum and and play together for at least 2 to 3 years to see what they look like.
I'm not so sure Well, Houston's GM came out and said they want to give him a run. They don't want to get rid of him before. But I'm not sure the GM in Milwaukee wants players back, because once you get rid of Dame's salary and Giannis's salary, then you got a clean slate to start over. And I mean, maybe they take a player or something back, but you're not going to get a starter back. You're not going to get an all-star back. If Cuban was still had any say at all, and he would probably lobby to trade AD for Giannis and probably give him a pick straight up.
Now, so let me ask you this, and then we'll move on to the next topic. Bob, who do you think is better? Say, for instance, Giannis is a great power forward, but I think AD has more skills than Giannis as far as offensively goes, and defensively they're pretty much comparable.
Yeah, comparable player.
Yeah, I don't see. I think you're probably because AD is about the same age as well, he's a little young, older than Giannis.
Yeah,
but
year difference.
Yeah, I don't see.
Give me AD, man. Give me a healthy AD. Let's say that. Not as is. It's not like the car lot. I don't want to buy it as is. I want a car that's been pre-certified, right?
Hey,
so give me.
Big Ken, that's always the caveat. We're always like, look, even beginning of last year, I was like, a healthy AD, give us a healthy AD, and then I had AD. I was like, year of date. I had to say year of date. AD is my defensive player of the year because I know the flat tire was gonna. I know it's coming. The flat tire was coming, and you're gonna be on the side of the road.
Man.
So I had to have that caveat of year to date. Anthony Davis is my defensive player of the year.
Right.
Getting AD
it's
is
like
equivalent
to in football. The best ability is availability.
That, but getting AD is similar to buying a lemon, because it's coming with problems, and eventually you're gonna have something go wrong. You just don't want it to be something catastrophic.
Yeah.
AD is a Maserati. When it's running, it's great, but it spends as much time in the shop as it does on the road.
Yeah.
But Giannis is more like a Lexus. It's a smooth ride, and it's going to be reliable. You take it out of the garage and you drive it all day. You don't have to take it to the shop.
Yeah. And then like Houston, I think culturally wise, family wise, his family probably would love Houston,
Yeah.
But then as far as organizational wise and being able to come fit right in, even with all the young players, I would be Spurs or stay home.
So Wilder, let me ask you this question. As far as what changes when we talk about changes, even though the Lakers surprised a lot of people getting into the playoffs this year from where they were way down. What was their position when they made the trade? And they was number 7 when they made the trade and got Luka. Yeah. Now that they've been knocked out of the first round of the playoffs, what do they need to do as far as next year wise to get better to get out of the first round of the playoffs?
Okay. First thing we talked about before is like we talked about how we've had some debates about point guard, right?
Right.
Necessarily ball handlers aren't necessarily facilitators, right? So when Luka's not in the game, oh boy, they feel it. You know what I'm saying? So you gotta, just because you have Luka, you still have to have some support role players there when he's not in the game. And then I'm gonna go right into LeBron, right? You can't just load that ball handling facilitator onto LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
Let LeBron be LeBron when LeBron is on. Let LeBron fall into place when he needs to. You can't tie his hands or force his hand. Let LeBron's game flow more naturally now that he's getting up in age, right? Because he can't necessarily call on something just when he wants to, right? He has to more pick his spots. And then with that being said, I'm glad I'm hearing it on, from other, commentators or podcasters where slide LeBron to the small forward. So slide LeBron to the 3. Don't put him down there in the power forward just because of his size, because you get down there with certain power forwards that'll just suck the life out of the elder statesman. Okay? So let LeBron live and die over there at the small forward position, right? Which then means he got 5. So I'm looking at +1 center, +1 power forward, or +2 centers.
Who's gonna play power forward? That's the question.
Yeah,
That's the thing. You gotta go bring in a couple of centers or bring in a center and a power forward, because that's what they're lacking.
You can't put
now,
LeBron
in my
at 3.
opinion, they lacking a point guard, in my opinion, because you got Luka bringing the ball up most of the time, or LeBron. You got 2 bigs basically bringing the ball up. You need a guard, man. I mean, as far as the Lakers go, that's my opinion.
But they never had that though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
LeBron is the point guard. LeBron is the show. He runs the show. So whatever position you put him at, he's still going to be the facilitator. But like Wild Dog was saying, with him putting him at the 3, the only problem with that is the 3 is a premium position in the NBA now. That means he's got to play defense. He's got to guard a 3 in a lot of situations, and that's not going to be good. Because he gonna get cooked, I'm telling you.
I know a lot of people disagree, and what I'm saying. So, but again, it's just 2025, not 2015. So even my thoughts and thinking about it, I had to break my misconceptions, all my history of LeBron, and look at LeBron in 2025 and be like, okay, Lakers right now, the way they're situated, you got to move LeBron to the 3. Now he can play 1 through 5. Right, but forcing his hand to be the facilitator is too much. Forcing his hand to be down on the block and banging it with the big guys, like you said, right? The league is leaning more towards centers, more towards big guys. That means more physical play, and the rest swallowing their whistle.
Only at the 5 though. I don't see a lot of power forwards down there banging right now though.
40-year-old LeBron James.
I'd rather have him near the paint, and because of his stature, being able to deal with some physical play, than rather have him on the perimeter getting blown by, because that's not going to work. I'm telling you that off the rip. That is a disaster. Every time he gets ISO'd, if you look at the games, every time they ISO LeBron, he's cooked. Just about every time. He's not as bad as Luka. He's not a cone. But his lateral movement is not where it needs to be anymore. And let's just be honest. LeBron has never been a great on-ball defender. He's always been a great help side defender or a great help defender. Yep. So, like I said, with that, coupled with his age and his losing a step here and there, I would not want him guarding any of the 2s and the 3s in this league, because they're just going to blow by him.
No,
then it's going to create another issue for me on the defensive backside if I don't have him near the paint.
If we're being honest, a 40-year-old broad is going to get blown by or blown up. Pick your poison. Pick your poison.
I think he'll be just fine with him playing the 4, because that creates a mismatch for him on offense for the other team. Most of these forwards in the team won't be able to keep up with a 40-plus-year-old LeBron. They just can't. They just don't have the ability to do that.
And they're gone fishing with him at the 4.
So, Ken, I'm going to ask you this same question I just asked Wild Dog. What do they need to get out of the first round for next year? I know you made some valid points, but is there anything else they can add? Because I know I talked about the point guard position, but what are your thoughts on them getting out of the first round for 2026 season?
They need a big. They've been saying it. That's why I was just saying, like, it's not the 4. LeBron's good at the 4. But you can't depend on him to be your rim defender. You need a rim defender. Every team that's successful got at least one rim defender.
Even Dallas has what, 3?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But see, even with Golden State, Draymond is not a big guy, but he still can defend the rim because he's so smart defensively and he covers so much ground that he makes up for that. Even though he's not, a true big or traditional big, they have enough on the team to be able to cover ground like that. The Lakers don't have that. They don't have great defensive guys anymore. They have guys that are supposed to be great, like Vando. He's supposed to be a great defender, but we still haven't seen him put it together consistently. So, you know, if you look at the Lakers roster, Anthony Davis was that anchor for them. When he was there, he covered up a lot of mistakes that they made defensively. And when they traded him away, they got more offense, but they got worse on the defensive side. And we all know that sometimes those defensive lacking doesn't quite show until the playoffs hit, because that basketball goes from up and down to half court sets. And when you're in the half court, you miss your bigs.
So with the inclusion of Luka Doncic to the LA Lakers, the defense to me suffered a little bit because both of them, him and LeBron, like you stated, are not very good on-ball defenders. What can they achieve if they, say, for instance, if LeBron retired? Can they achieve success with Luka at the position he's in now and add somebody to complement him? If they added somebody to complement him, what would be the best complement, and what position would that complement besides center? Because I know they need a center, but do they need another shooting guard or a small forward? What do they need? If LeBron retires.
If LeBron retires, you need to go out and get you somebody like a Jaden McDaniels, a long 6'8", 6'9", 3, you know, a position that a guy that maybe played a 2 or 3. One of those guys is versatile, that can cover ground and that's long and that can play. You know what I'm saying? He don't have to be the best defensive player, but as long as he can play some decent defense, that's going to help tremendously. Because let's just be honest. You've seen the best defense that Luka can play. You've seen it. It's not going to get any better. You're not going to see any changes in that. So he's going to be the guy, and we all know he's a world beater when it comes to making shots and offensive production and facilitating. But if you get a big that can actually defend the rim, and you get a 3 that is interchangeable, that he can be able to guard the other team's best player, which is generally going to be a 2 or a 3 a lot of times, then you got something that you can move forward with. But unless they do that, the only thing they're going to need next year is a miracle, because it's gonna be ugly. And if LeBron retires, it's gonna be even worse. It's gonna be even worse for them.
Do you think they'll make the playoffs next year if LeBron retires?
If LeBron retires and they don't pick up somebody in the offseason, I don't see them making the playoffs. Not in the West. They might make the play in, but they ain't gonna make the playoffs.
Dang. Yeah. And speaking of playing, I hated to see my Mavericks not make it past Memphis, because I think they would have gave Oklahoma a better performance for sure, because we kind of match up well with them. But with Brandon Williams coming on as far as playing that guard position, I think he's going to be a good addition next year for sure for the Mavs. Boogie Bob, your thoughts, man? Where do the Lakers need to go, man, to get out of that first round when it comes to playoffs for next year?
Well, you know, listening to Ken, you changed my mind there, Ken. What I have wrote down, and after listening to you, I'm like, you just upset the apple cart. Like, when you think about it, on-ball defenders. I mean, we never 6.5 years watching Luka last year in the playoffs. The first time I kept saying I'd never seen him play on the ball defense. And teams would, Boston exposed him and just switched until they got the matchup they want, which is what Luka likes to do. But he would basically hang out at the rim, wait for the rebound. If a small forward was there, he tried to cover them. But it was 4 people playing man and man, and Luka was playing his own. But look at what Boston, between Jaylen Brown and, as Wild Dog called it last year, Derek White, and as we all know, Drew Holiday, they had 3 guys that could play on the ball defense. And if you switched, you already had another equal defender. And they neutralized the big just with the strategic pattern they had with Horford and Tatum. and they pretty much trapped them into the paint and guarded the kick out three on the corner three. So I like when you look at the Lakers roster, it's glitz and glam, which is the Lakers. And like you said, during the regular season, it looks great. It's highlight reel. But when it comes to the playoffs, that don't work. It's the reason Nelly, Nelly had a lot of great teams. They look great in the regular season. It comes to playoffs, and it's slowed down to half court. But that when you were talking about the change in the game, Wild Dog, that's the one thing you're seeing. They talked about 3 and D, 3 and D, 3 and D for several years, and now you're finding out that if you don't have an on the ball defender, basically half. I would say maybe not half, but at least a quarter of the league. Once they take one step past the half court line, they can make a shot, and so on the ball defender more so than just the number threes you take is you have to have multiple on the ball defenders. You can't have just one guy taking that responsibility.
Yeah.
And Lakers have none of that. I mean, I wrote down like what Wild Dog said, power forward and center. The Mark Williams trade, non-trade fiasco. I wouldn't be surprised that maybe they call Miami and see what they can get Bam Adebayo. They still have 2 first-round picks they can trade. But Kevin Looney comes in when Draymond Green is in, he's serviceable.
Yeah.
And even when this guy was with the Lakers, I didn't understand why they traded, but he's showing he was actually in the voting behind Jalen Brunson for most improved. But Ivan Zubac, who Luka made look like a fool,
that Clippers series.
He was a Laker. Zubac he's an underrated center. So
what about don't they have Alex Lynn right now too, as far as the Lakers go?
Yeah, that was to fill a roster spot and have somebody, but Zubac's pretty much their main guy. But Kawhi is an on the ball defender. And Wild Dog called this last year. He said Derek White needed to show up in the finals, and he showed up. I mean, how many block shots did you see Derek White getting in the finals?
Block shots, and he cracked his tooth.
He hit 3-pointers, and then you got Drew Holiday on. I'm like, who are you going to beat? You got Derek White, and then if he switches off, you got Drew Holiday. Oh, great! Now I got to beat Jaylen Brown too. If I get by all 3 of them, now I got Tatum in front of me or Al Horford. There's just the Lakers are going to have to win some other kind of way, or they're going to have to really change the makeup of their team. And I'll say this: LeBron doesn't retire this year because there's one record that one man holds. We all know of insanity, and LeBron he want all the records. When it's said and done, he wants to own all the records. So he plays next year. That's 23 seasons.
Yeah.
No NBA player ever played 23 seasons.
Yeah.
Dang, that's crazy.
He can have all the records, and guess what? Next year is going to be a broken record because the same thing going to happen. They're going to be at home.
A broken record. And if you look on YouTube, Boogie Bob, I posted a picture, and it shows the 7 years LeBron at the Lakers and their record and playoff record. And it's not good. Everybody said, well, they won the championship. I told Wild Dog this on the phone the other day. I said, they won the championship in the bubble. Everybody's like, oh, you can't say that. I said, yeah, they had 3 months rest. Everybody could get healthy. And then they gave them like 2 weeks to play 7 games to get in shape. And like LeBron and AD basically got a 4-month recovery period to where they could lights out play for just, a few weeks. So it's like that forget that it's a bubble. It's like you give any team 4 months off to get healthy.
It was like an in-season tournament.
Well, yeah, I mean, Phoenix and Devin Booker went crazy. If you remember, they won every game in the bubble, and dang near made the playoffs, which sent them to the finals. But I mean, whether you put an asterisk or not, the hidden thing about the 1 year they won the chip, And as I mentioned earlier, I can't. My prediction of Lakers Celtics has gone out the window, but I think LeBron still wants ring number 5. He wants one for the thumb. He wants one for the thumb because he wants to tie Kobe.
Well,
But yeah, I mean, they need a bunch of stuff, and their pocketbooks aren't deep enough for what they need.
That's a fact.
Thanks. And Big Ken, speaking of rings, there's one player that won a ring for the Dallas Mavericks back in 2011. And there's a lot of controversy, circling the team since the Luka trade. And the GM, Nico Harris, is currently serving as the Mavs GM. Will Dirk, if the fans run Nico out with the pitchforks and fire, will Dirk be a better replacement for him? If so, what kind of job would Dirk do if he happens to become the GM? I don't think he'll take the job. Well, give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't think he would take the job, but I go ahead.
Big Ben. I was talking to Ken. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. But Dirk is loved by everybody, man. Like everybody around the league, all the different players, they talk about him in admiration. When you hear people like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett talk about Dirk and all these other former players, and then the players now, they have a lot of respect for him. So I think if he was in that position, a lot of those GMs boils down to having relationships with people and having a good rapport with people. And I think because people like Dirk and people have a good rapport with Dirk, that if Dirk was in that position, I think he would be able to get a lot of people to come play for the Mavs that probably wouldn't otherwise.
You think the ownership has a lot to do with it as far as where they are when it comes to how people view them as a franchise now?
Yeah, of course. I mean, after the Luka thing, it's still up in the air. Nico's getting the blame, but we really don't know who actually pulled the card for that to occur. We have these conspiracy theories of was it the league, making the shift, making a power play to put Luka in that large market? Was it just Nico trying to get ahead of things because he didn't like the way Luka was as a superstar, and going to have to pay him max money and that max investment in him, and they didn't like what they saw of him outside of the court and some physical things. But at the end of the day, getting rid of a trading a player like Luka isn't always the big thing, but I think for Nico, where the whole situation was bad, is people didn't feel like they got anything back.
And then plus they did it in the silence of the night, and then that was like, why would you do a trade in the middle of the night? Something that you talked about weeks ago at a cafe. And now, say for instance, if Luka was not Luka, but Dirk did become the GM, and before Luka was traded, and then this was said on ESPN, I think yesterday, they were saying that Luka is out of shape, and they was comparing how he played his first 3 years versus how he's playing now. They said too much American food, basically. So it's kind of not as fast
food.
Right. So if Dirk would have seen that same thing as the GM, do you think Dirk would have talked to the guy, or would Dirk be contemplating trading him as well? Your thoughts, Ken?
I think Dirk, if he was around them like that, and in that role, I'm pretty sure Luka would still be in Dallas. So I don't, like I said, I don't see anybody making that type of deal other than Nico. When you think about Nico, you think about his background outside of basketball, working with Nike and these other associations that he has. You have to think about those as well, because at the end of the day, we know that the game now has gone beyond competition. It's about money, it's about business. So it's something else that may be going on behind the scenes that forced their hand. So I mean, it's a difficult one to call, but I think Dirk, in any position that allows him to reach out to people and be able to, build relationships and rapport with these players, I think it'll put Dallas in a much better space.
Now, if it happens, we don't know if it happened or not. Dirk becomes the GM president or whatnot. Do you think if he had the opportunity to bring Luka back, would Luka be on the table for Dirk to bring him back? And if so, what would that look like?
I think if I tell you like this, if Luka was coming back to Dallas, it would not be as a max player, because I don't think at this point, from what they've seen this year, the second half when he got to LA, and if he doesn't make a transformation over the offseason and come back, tip top shape and things like that, I don't think anybody in the league is going to be willing to pay top dollar for him at that point. Now they will pay a lot of money, but a max player, and it's one of those things. It's terrible for him because we live in a day and age where a lot of people will follow the narratives, right? They might not know the situation, but they hear the story so much, and it's so repetitive, and it's everywhere on social media, news, ESPN, that they start thinking what they're hearing, even if it's not correct, because they hear it so much. So unfortunately for Luka, that's affecting his stock at this point moving forward. So if I'm Luka, I go hard this offseason, get in the best shape of my life, and come back to prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, facts. Boogie Bob, Dirk, or Nico, if you was to have to choose between those two GMs, I know you're gonna say Dirk, but what would be the difference between the two if Dirk was the GM and doing what Nico does? And can Dirk bring in high stakes?
I want to say one thing, tag on with what Ken said before I answered the question. And I've said this a couple weeks ago. I think Luka goes and plays with Joker. He goes and plays with Jokic. And it wasn't that long ago that people were saying the same thing about Jokic. And then he came back in shape and won his first MVP. And they add on to that in the exit interview with JJ Redick. He said he didn't address a specific player, but he said, we need to get in shape, which was obviously a reference to Luka. So you've got now, Rick Carlisle quit, right? Rick Carlisle quit, left town, and Donnie the next day. So, and more than one player, like Ken said, more than one player, more than one source is talking about this. So, Dirk is a GM. I will say this: over the years, I've been watching basketball since the late '70s, pro basketball. Former players make terrible GMs. Former players can make good coaches because they understand the game, but they make terrible GMs. There's three exceptions I'm going to mention: Danny Ainge, Pat Riley, Larry Bird.
What about we had him on the show, Kiki Vanderwick?
He was so GM. I just they get along well with other players. So when they have to make a hard decision, they, instead of making an analytical or reasonable or decision, they make emotional decisions sometimes, and they don't hold up very well as a GM. And so you go with your buddy, or you go with somebody that knows your buddy, instead of going with the rational, I won't say analytics, but rating charts or whatever you want to use. But I'm not saying Dirk would be a bad GM. I'm just saying historically, players are typically bad GMs. They other than the three I mentioned. But with that said, it don't take much to do more than Nico right now. A year ago, we were singing his praises because he went and got Gafford and PJ. But the Mavericks really didn't have a power
as well, though.
True. But had had last year's team had Najee Harris instead of Derrick Jones Jr. and had Spencer Dinwiddie decided to go with the Mavericks instead of the Lakers, would they have been able to compete a little better? And that they didn't get beat by the Celtics. Like, they weren't blown out. Yeah, the series was 4-1, but they were in most of the games.
Yeah,
In fact,
they should have won that first game.
if Luka doesn't foul out in game 3 when he missed a layup with Bunny and he committed a silly foul, which eventually led to him fouling out. I mean, they were there. They were right there on the cusp. It's just you had some players for Boston that had like career nights. Porzingis plays one game, and you talk about flat tires. He had all 4 axles on the ground, but he had one hell of a game 1, and that's all they needed. And Horford played. I like Al Horford, but he played out his ass. You had several. You got what you're supposed to out of Tatum and Brown, but they had. Hopefully Pritchard wins 6th man of the year, but Hauser came in and buried the rock, and we had too many players that their first time in their spotlight, they crawled up into a shell. PJ didn't show up. There's several players that didn't show up.
Kyrie didn't show up.
Kyrie let the fans get to him. But Dirk is a GM. I mean, I would root for him. I think, this last Monday, we relocated our seats, and there were a lot of options to upgrade seats. Let's just put it that way. There was a lot of available seats. Dirk would, this organization basically dissed Dirk more than once, and that would go a long ways to bringing fan loyalty back, as having him as GM, even if he didn't succeed. But there's other people that deserve blame. Where was Michael Finley in all this?
Haven't heard him. The only video you see of Michael Finley is when he's taking that beer from Luka in the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah. He's sitting there like a bum on the log and just, resting back and collecting his paycheck. But I just, you got to love Dirk. So why not give him a shot? It can't get any worse.
Lalo, do you agree with that? Do you think Dirk would be a better GM than Nico, or because Nico has a lot of history, man, and he's very smart when it comes to putting teams together. So I don't know how far we'll go next year with the roster we have. Hopefully they don't change too much. But do you think do you think Dirk will be a better GM than Nico?
Hey, Big Mike, my philosophy in this life is that this life is about relationships. And the most important relationship is your relationship with, Big Daddy, the mighty one, the creator. So relationships are everything, which is basically how Nico was looked at as someone who can maximize his relationships, to the benefit of being a general manager for the Mavericks. Now, it's something about going one step too far, and then certain relationships being an Achilles heel. So because of Nico's relationships, he's got exposed. Trade is evident of Nico's relationship with Rob being, getting exposed because of his relationships. So it happens. It can happen. It happened, and so again, with the theme of relationships, Dirk being a better GM, I would have to say no, because Dirk is missing in action. Dirk is nowhere to be found.
He's a daddy right now. He's daddy and a father.
Dirk, I'm just saying as far as the organization, because Dirk was around. Dirk was being seen almost every other day. Dirk was actively involved. Dirk was elevated to just, team legend to actual active ambassador, so, but Dirk Dirk has, man, let me stop. I don't know. Dirk has no love for the goober. Patrick Dumont, the goober. Dirk is not dealing with this man. Dirk having to function, to work with the goober in order to do his job, that's just not going to work,
And from my understanding, he's not truly an owner. It's just more of the lady that's the owner, and he's part of the process.
And then being part of the family, a minority owner is designated as the governor, which it's like, again, going too far. I was okay, I could see that coming. I knew kind of that was going to come. He found the right people to sell the majority to, and then Cuban's going to stay on as the governor. Okay, we're good. Oh, Cuban is no longer the governor. Patrick Dumont. And I look at him like, who done picked this goober to be the new governor? It ain't got nothing to do with Cuban stepping down. Like, who is this? Boogie Bob is the first person I said it to, and it just came out. And
I told you then that night at Chili's, I said, you watch, he won't be the governor. And you said that, no, you read the law. We had an argument at Chili's, and the bartender thought we were crazy, arguing back and forth. And I told you right then, I said Dumont was going to be the governor, and you thought I was crazy.
Not goober. And I said, not that goober. And here we are. You know what I'm saying? So I don't mean to ignore your question, but because of relationships, after you answer your question, no, because you can't operate in dysfunction and do a better job than Nico being exposed to his relationships. Okay? And then my next note is Michael Finley. Somebody, Boogie Bob brought it up. He's been quiet because he's smart. Michael Finley has been groomed by Mark Cuban since 2010. And that's
wasn't he groomed by Popovic as well?
And that's how he found himself, right? Coming from the Legends, moving back over to the Mavericks, elevated to assistant general manager and vice president of player personnel. And I scratched my head wondering, why didn't they go ahead with Finley as general manager? Because I'm like, Fin Dog is ready. But then when it came out, the opportunity with Nico and leveraging his relationships, I'm like, oh, I get it. But Fin Dog is ready. So I know your question is Dirk. I answered it, but Michael Finley, interim general manager, And like I said, he's been groomed. He spent his time with Pop, and after he retired in 2010, he was a fixture right next to Mark Cuban on the sideline. And in the organization, moved up and over to the Legends, working with Spud Webb, and then back over to the Mavericks, elevated and learning and building up. Michael Finley's a smart man. He did very well for himself in the league, won a chip with the Spurs. He ain't Dirk, but that could be a benefit of things because he could deal with the goober, right? He's been dealing with the goober, and has a solid reputation throughout the league.
Yeah, I agree with you. I still think Dirk would probably, if he was given the opportunity, like you mentioned earlier, I believe, his fandom, the fandoms really loved what Dirk did as far as bringing that first championship to Dallas and taking them to the championship in 2006. The next team we want to talk about, and this is the OKC Thunder, which was formerly the Sonic. They have a lot of great history, and I know we talked about them before when we had our guy on that's in Canada. Bob, what are your thoughts on the legacy as far as OKC and we can say Seattle Supersonics go? What are some notable players that stand out in your mind, and kind of give us your thoughts on that franchise?
It's a long list. It's a very long list. And I actually broke it in. I kind of cheated in a way. I've got new school, old school. So I've got two players. Okay. I'm going to start with the old school player first. Jack Sigma. I thought about Sean Kemp, but I have Jack Sigma.
Okay.
Jack Sigma.
Jack Sigma had to defend Kareem, a young Bill Walton, the older Sabonis.
He's on my list, so
He was a solid player. His career stats. Now, he played from 77, and he played 14 seasons. His career stats: 15.6, 9.8, 3.2.
Nice.
You got to remember, this is during. I mean, we're not talking about an old Kareem. This was a mid-30s, early 30s Kareem, and a very young Bill Walton, and a Sabonis who came over from Europe. Like, he held his own. That's some pretty good. 15.6, 9.8 rebounds, 3.2 assists. 14 seasons, 7-time All-Star, 5 times MVP voting shares. Rookie of the year, he finished 4th. 1-time defense. He made the all defensive team, second team, 1 time. 1981-82. Think about this. Now, this is before Michael Jordan, but you still got Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and those guys. 81-82, he led the league in defensive rebounds per game. Oh, and by the way, in 1979, the year after Wes Unseld with the Washington won it, he got a chip in 1979. So that's my old school player. You got the trio that went to the finals with KD, Harden, Ibaka, if you want to include him, and Russ. I took KD for my new school player. And my take on KD is he's a great shooting range. Hold on. He's a great scorer, great shooting range. And oh, by the way, he's in a 30,000 point club, which he's number 8 on the all-time scoring list. So there's only 8 players in the history of the NBA, Dirk being one of them, that have scored 30,000 points. KD's career stats: 26.6 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists. Pretty high score, decent. It's the long list of awards why I chose him over Westbrook or Harden. KD has already played 17 seasons. I don't think of him as being that old, but that's too. He basically didn't play a year. 17 seasons. He was 2007, 2008 Rookie of the Year. 14 times he'd been voted an All-Star. He played in 15 because there was an injury, but 14-time All-Star. 2013-14 MVP. NBA Finals MVP twice. Not once, but twice. 2 chips for the Warriors. 11 times he's had MVP voting shares out of 17 seasons, more than half. 10 times he's had voting shares for the defensive team. 6 times he's made the NBA All-NBA first team. Another 5 times he's made the second team. 5 times consecutive scoring leader. Even Michael Jordan, who had won the scoring title more than that, but 5 consecutive years he was the scoring champion. He's an Olympic champion. And he's made a career earnings of $399 million.
You talking about KD?
KD.
Golly.
And, he signed max contract. Of course, he went to Brooklyn. He went to Golden State because they had some, but he hadn't got the super max contract that the players are now getting. I mean, $399. You think about the super max that Luka signed. I think it was in that neighborhood. It was over 300, and what some of the players are now. But the long list of awards that he's already. I mean, you talk about, is LeBron going to retire? KD's probably got another 2 or 3 really good years left in him, maybe maybe more. And yeah, he tore his Achilles and came back from it, but he's one of the rares that succeeded. That if there's any hope for Dame, it's the fact that KD has great range and great scorer, great shooter. Dame could follow that same one, but my gosh, there are only 8 players in the 30,000 point club, and 2 of them are playing now with LeBron still playing. That's rare. That's a whole. I've used this term before, Ken, and you liked it. That's a whole different stratosphere. So that's my new school, old school OKC Seattle Supersonics. Jack Sigma and KD.
Nice. Well, dog, swinging it over to you, man. What are your thoughts on that franchise, man? What are some of your notable players that could stick out to you? Because I still haven't. I don't know how much I like Sean Kemp in this whole conversation. That dude was beast, man. How would he play now if he was playing in this particular environment at his prime? He would be freaking crazy. But give me your thoughts on some of the players that you have in mind as far as legacy players for that franchise.
I mean, Sean Kemp. I'm just saying this.
Oh yeah, when he dunked on him, he went.
Yeah, just so athletic. So I mean,
Yeah.
the talent and athleticism, people forget because of moments like that, and it's like, oh, just dunking or whatever. But it was way much more than that. You can't be beloved by Gary Payton and not be a two-way player. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they both played awesome defense, man.
Yeah. And it's simply the fact that they lost the 1996 finals, which throws the shade. GP went on to get a chip, and Sean Kemp, didn't. So that kind of puts you, in a whole different category, throws shade on you. But me, that was a heyday for me, and I love me some Sean Kemp. You know what I'm saying? If the Super Science were on, I'm watching them too. But as far as now, my goodness, with some of the rules, again, if he's coming up now, a young buck, I would think now they would probably have to change a rule or two to slow him down. If he came through like he did now, and it's basically, if you want to say a Zion Williamson without the flat tires,
We're gonna have to deep dive on Zion pretty soon.
So if you want to, if somebody's trying to think, okay, Sean Kemp, like think about Zion Williamson, but again without the flat tires. Like if Zion came in and his full trajectory without being so hindered by, injuries and so forth, kind of what that would look like. That was like your modern day Sean Kemp. And if you got Zion Williamson, even when he showed us flashes of himself being optimal, it's like, who can nobody do anything with him? What are they going to do about him? And the league would one way or the other, or with the whistle, they would, keep the game under control on the flow and under control of the guards like they want to.
So speaking of guards, though, who would you choose? Would you choose Drew Holiday right now or Gary Payton at that time? Who was the better guard?
Oh man, the glove is my guy. I mean, just from watching VHS tapes of him from high school and college. Oh, that he talks a lot. I mean, you kind of want to like take a deep breath and step back but he ain't lying. He talks so much trash, he talks so much game, but he's not lying. But
yeah, he has to guard Michael Jordan on many nights.
You try to give the man his flowers, and it's like, shoot, he got it covered. he's like, he got it covered. You know what I'm saying? So, but GP, man, that dude, that guy's something else. Coming out of Cali and everything, and then just not even just himself, but his influence. So even I remember the story, that Jason Kidd was talking about how, rolling up on Gary Payton and Gary Payton come to see him play, and his influence is at a whole nother level. So even if we get to the point we talk about people's legacy, with his play, Gary Payton got it covered. But what I would like people to realize after the game, and when he rolls up on players and his conversations, and his involvement with players, what he's being able to do to influence the game and be almost like an elder. And there's things about Gary Payton that we won't even find out till he's gone. You know what I'm saying? That then people will have released to talk about. But he's done so much for the game that it can't be calculated, you know, from influencing people by his own play. But then after he was done, he's been so involved and doesn't hesitate to get directly involved. You just got to be able to handle it. You know what I'm saying? If you got Gary Payton, you're on the floor with Gary Payton, you just got to be able to handle it. You know, and if he smells something that's not right, you're going to have a really hard time, right? You know,
and who are the players you can put on that legacy list for you besides those two?
But again, when it comes to the Thunder, Supersonics, my main guy that I really want to highlight is Lenny Wilkins, because we forget 3-time All-Star as a player, but check it now, he was the head coach of that 79 championship team. You feel me? So Lenny Wilkins, for me, when I think Thunder, Supersonics, that's my main guy. He repped as a player. He repped as a head coach. You know, so, and that's old school black and white going back with Lenny Wilkins.
Salute. Big Ken, your thoughts on the legacy of the Oklahoma City Thunder and, you know, the Seattle Supersonics, man. Who do you got on your legacy list as far as that franchise?
I think, you know, the list of people that's been mentioned so far, from the Sigmas to, you know, Wilkins. Of course, Sean Kemp was, and growing up as a kid in the 90s, Sean Kemp and Shaq were my two favorite players in the 90s. Yeah. Contrary to popular belief, people always say, well, you're a big Jordan fan. Well, when I was a kid, I was a Jordan fan, but I was a Shaq and Sean Kemp fan first.
Right.
So, but yeah, so one guy that I used to hear this name pop up a lot, and a lot of the guys that have have a surgence from the Seattle area, like these players that play now, like Isaiah Thomas and trying to think of the other guy's name, Jamal Crawford. They talk about Slick Watts. Slick Watts was a guy that kind of revolutionized the game, and, you know, was ahead of his time with some of the things that he was able to do at that point in his career, that a lot of times he's overlooked when you start talking about the players from that franchise, because they have a lot of great players, right? You know, of course, you know, when you think about the new school, you think about KD probably being at the top of that mountain, as far as, you know, all those players and the accolades and things and what he's been able to do. But, you know, just thinking about people like Slick Watts and Dennis Johnson when he played for the Sonics as well, those two guys kind of stand out to me, along with the list that's already been, you know, talked about.
What about Detlef Schrempf, though? Detlef Schrempf changed the game just by him just being such a prolific shooter.
Yeah, Detlef Schrempf, and to me, Detlef Schrempf and Tony Kukoc were kind of, you know, those predecessors to some of the European players that we see now, 6'9", 6'10", shooters that, you know what I'm saying, can do some things on the floor that hadn't been seen from guys other than, you know, a couple of guys in the league at that point, you know what I'm saying, a la somebody like Larry Bird, that's 6'10", 6'11", that can shoot and that was mobile like that and they can handle the ball. But yeah, Detlef Schrempf was definitely, when you look back at those rosters from the 90s, from Kemp, Payton, Schrempf, you know, and the other players that they had some solid rosters, but unfortunately for them, there was a guy that played in Chicago. He wore number 23 that kept a lot of people from getting rings. And as the kids say, well, he only won 6, but yeah, you know, 2-3 peats is saying a lot. I'm just saying.
He probably would have won 7 in a row if he would have retired.
Man, yeah, he probably had 7. He probably would have had 7 or 8. You know, so I mean, it's tough to say, but yeah, I mean, OKC, they have OKC in Seattle. You know what I'm saying, they have a rich history of players, and I actually am looking forward. You know, they've been talking about getting a franchise back in Seattle, and I really hope they do. Because I love to see that.
Yeah, the only thing about Seattle is that the politics in that city is going to probably not even allow that to happen because there's so much going on. They got to clean that city up because I flew out there a couple years ago just to visit my daughter because she's in the Navy out there, and that city is like it just doesn't look the same. Like when you see the pictures of what before I visited, it seemed, and I used to watch a lot of Frasier back in the day, so I was really a fan of Seattle back then. I was like, yeah, I got to go up there and visit that city. But when I got there, years later, it was like, oh my God, what am I looking at? It's like a war zone almost.
Well, you sound like me when when I was a kid. You watch all these movies, you watch all these TV shows that have New York, and then you grow up and you actually start visiting New York, and you walk around there, and you're like, it's pretty ashy here. It's pretty, it's not like the movies at all. It's pretty rough here. There's trash in the streets. There's rats that look like puppies. I mean, some of these places just don't look the way you think that they will look, or the way that they should look on the postcards, as they say. So yeah, I completely understand.
That's why when I was in Seattle, I stayed close to the tourist areas because we went out of Seattle on our Alaskan cruise way back in the day, and so I was like, whenever I take a cruise, I always wanted to like enjoy the port, not just rush on the ship. I want to enjoy the port either before or after the cruise. It's almost like two vacations in one. So got to enjoy the tourist sections of Seattle before heading out for Alaska cruise.
So my last question,
got to go to a Mariners baseball game. The Mariners Stadium is beautiful.
Yeah. Ken, I got one more last question for you. So if you had to choose between, and this is the franchise for Seattle and Oklahoma, if they had to face off against each other, the 90s Seattle Supersonics, the KD Oklahoma City Thunder, or the SGA Thunder, which team would win if you had to face them off?
I mean, I can't go against my 90s guys. I can't go against that team, man. I think that it'll be an intriguing matchup. I'm thinking right now in my head a matchup between somebody like, you look at somebody like Chet, who's athletic and who's athletic big, versus a Kemp. You know what I'm saying? So you think
and
about
they had
matchups.
Sam Perkins too, remember?
Yeah. So you think about matchups like that, and again, Sam Perkins was ahead of his time, being a 6'11 guy, 6'10, 6'11 guy, shooting a bunch of threes. So, but yeah, man, I can't go against my 90 squad, man. I got to get an edge to my 90 squad, just simply on the defensive side of things.
There's 4 players from that we have talked about that were. So Tom Chambers was on that Seattle team. Dale Ellis was on that team.
Yes.
Tom Chambers went on to Phoenix, and Dale Ellis, who was a Maverick, he lit it up once he got to Seattle. And then when you talk about the Jack Sigma, we didn't mention Gus Williams or Downtown Freddie Brown.
Downtown Freddie Brown. I remember hearing that.
Yeah, Fred Brown and Gus Williams are both on my list as well. But yeah, we could do a whole hour on
just this subject.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we don't have much of an hour to go though. Hey, guys, I want to say thank y'all again for joining the conversation. It's always great to have Big Ken on. Boogie Bye, you always hopping in, and Wild Dog, salute to you for jumping out. We're gonna close out, and Bob, tell the people where they can find you on their social media streets, man. Give me your handles and all that good stuff.
So on YouTube, you can always find me at up there above Ken, Swish for Real. Subscribe.
That way.
Grow the show. And of course, I'm on YouTube as Boogie Bob, but Swish for Real.
Wild Dog, where can the people find you on these social media streets, man? Give them all your handles and locations, my guy.
I never did too much. I stay out of trouble, so you can find me on YouTube doing sports commentary, or just out there having fun, trying to seek the truth and speak the truth. So you can find me on YouTube at Wild Dog 357. Again, that's on YouTube at Wild DOG 357 on YouTube. And as always, here at Swish for Real, baby.
Swish for Real. And one of our esteemed guests. As always, man, we love when you jump on, man. You make the show just glow, and I appreciate you coming on. Man, real talk. You are so knowledgeable. Give the people your social media handles or where they can find you at, man, so they can kind of catch up with you on these social media streets.
All right. Well, first of all, man, I appreciate you guys having me, man. It's always a pleasure to come on and talk sports. I look forward to it anytime you hit me up, and I'm like, man, if I don't have something really pressing, man, I'm gonna be here for sure, for sure. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to come on and spew my rhetoric, man. But man, y'all can catch me on all social media platforms. Just type in Big Ken. I'll usually pop up. But if you're on IG, type in Big Ken on Fire and follow me there. You can follow me also on my show. We go live every Tuesday on YouTube and Facebook and IG. The Fiyah Session. That's FIYAH session. You can go to the YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button, and make sure you hit that bell notification to make sure that you don't miss an episode, don't miss a clip, don't miss any information. And shout out to my crew, man. We're celebrating 5 years, man, today. So shout out to them, man. We nearing 200 episodes, so we just putting in work.
Salute, man. Congratulations, man. That's a feat.
Yeah,
I think we hit 200 videos, but not episodes. I think we are pushing at 65, and we haven't really released all 65, but we got quite a few of them out there, man. But that is a feat in itself. 200 episodes, man. That's a salute, bro. Congratulations.
Appreciate that.
Nah, for real. Guys, if you want to see me, I'm on X, Mikhail Lampkin Mikhail. And I've added poet-director now. That way, people know that I'm now directing films, trying to get it done. And again, Ken is on one of our upcoming comedies that we've been working on for quite a while. Hopefully, we'll have it done in post by the summer, end of summer. July, we should have some semblance of the trailer will be out hopefully by June. So you'll see Big Ken on the trailer, and it's a good film though. It's very funny, and I hope you guys enjoy it. But you can find me here on Swish for Real, and also I have a YouTube channel that just me. I don't do much on it, but again, it's the same Mikhail Lampkin and the poet and the director, so you can see my stuff there. So guys, been a great show. Ken, again, thanks for coming on. Boogie Bob, Wild Dog, what a great show, guys. Giving your weekend back. Swish for Real, guys. We are out. Peace.
Peace.